Welcome. Finance can be messy, but don't worry, we clean it up with facts, fun, and maybe a little sarcasm. Welcome to the Financial Sandbox. Let's get into it. Today, my guest is Katie Smith from WFG Title. Now, I'm in the Bay Area, and when I first met Katie, I would call her and say, "Hey, can you pop by the office tomorrow at 10 o'clock?"
That was hard.
That was really difficult because at the time I didn't know that you were in Utah.
Yes, I made the huge move and leap of faith and left my home state of California to explore something different.
Yeah. And so you live in Utah now. Where do you live? I have a lot of friends in Lehigh and Salt Lake. So are you close to there?
I'm Lehigh's the next city up. I am just
Really?
south of Lehigh, outside of Provo, in a new city, which is very different from California because there is no new cities. I'm in a place called Vineyard, Utah, and they're literally constructing it as I'm sitting here. So
really,
yeah.
So you moved to a brand new town.
When we moved in 2020, there was not one stoplight. We're now up to 3. Proud to say there's 3 different stoplights. So growing like gangbusters.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's great. So today we're going to talk about something that's unique to the state of California, and also something that I think a lot of states are trying to implement. And here in the state of California, we used to have something called Prop 6090, which started back in, I think it was 86.
Yes.
And now it's the voters in 2020, 2019, something like that.
What? 2020, November of 2020.
Yep. Okay, I got the dates right. Approved Prop 19. So can you tell us a little about what Prop 6090 was, and then how did it change to Prop 19? And here on the Sandbox, I talk about a lot of different things, right? I'm a specialist in 1031 exchange and various areas of financial services, but I think this is a big financial service, and I think that people really don't understand it and don't get it. So can you enlighten us?
Yes. And before we even jump into there, I'd like to do a little bit more history because of the reason why we need things like Proposition 6090 that you just talked about, as well as the updated version, Prop 19. And that goes all the way back 46 years ago to 1978. A proposition a long time ago, a proposition was passed in California, pretty historical proposition, actually, and it was Proposition 13. And what that proposition did 46 years ago was it allowed, or I should say restricted, property taxes to only increase approximately 2% for every year that you're in the house. It allowed seniors, because in California, real estate tends to go up rapidly. And so back in the 70s, it was going up so rapidly, seniors were being priced out of homes that they were already living in because they couldn't afford the property taxes.
Sure.
So Proposition 13 passed. And so we've been living underneath that proposition now for 46 years, long time. And what they discovered in the late 80s, 1986-ish, was about 8 years after Prop 13 passed, seniors then were getting locked into their houses because they were on this lower property increase and they weren't able to move. And so the first proposition to help that was Prop 60. And Prop 60 allowed someone that was 55 years or older to take that property tax rate and move it to a new property that fit their needs better. But that was within county. They weren't able to move outside of the county, but they were able to move their primary residence. And so
this is kind of I want to go back to that point, because what you're saying is that if they lived in San Mateo County and they wanted to move to Los Angeles County or Riverside County, the tax bill that they currently had, they could go buy a new house and take that rate to the new house. Let's get into that.
Yeah. So under Prop 60,
Uh-huh.
Under Prop 60, there's so many numbers. Under Prop 60, in 1986, it would allow you to go from San Francisco to San Francisco. So it was very inclusive of county to county, but it would let you transfer the property taxes. So then a few years later in 1988, another proposition was passed, which was Prop 90. Prop 90 would allow you to do what you just mentioned, live in San Mateo County and move to Los Angeles County and take those property taxes with you. But with Prop 90, there was a little caveat that every year the counties would be able to opt in to Prop 90 or opt out of Prop 90. So you really had to take a look at who was participating that year, who wasn't participating. And the last, I don't know, I wouldn't say half a dozen to a dozen years or so of Prop 90's existence, it normally hovered around 10 to 12 counties that would opt in, but they would change. And so if you were making plans to move to Los Angeles County, you kept having to look to make sure that they were still participating to take that tax rate with you.
And San Francisco was not very friendly about this.
You know, they opted in. Yeah, San Francisco. I always laugh at all my classes because it's always national, except for San Francisco.
Except for San Francisco.
National, except this is different in the city. So, so it's always got its own beat to, you know, that's why we love San Francisco, right?
Right,
it's always doing its own thing. But that was
so since there were counties that didn't want to do this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In 2020, there was another proposition called Prop 19.
Yes.
And that basically said, okay, look, everybody, it's an even playing field.
Yes. Everybody is invited to the party.
I mean, their ad campaign was a little hokey.
Yes.
I remember this. They had firefighters and all this and the fire stuff. And it was like the firefighter can't buy their house again and move back in.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it was really hokey because it seemed like, okay, the insurance company is still going to give them the money to rebuild that house. Is the firefighter not able to build their house again? I mean, come on, right? This was the ad campaign that they used.
The ad campaigns pro and against, I remember very well. And pro and against were entertaining at best
entertaining.
for both sides.
Yes.
They were entertaining at best for both sides. But Proposition 19, when it did pass, and we also have to remember what was happening in 2020. And the answer to that was nothing, right? Like we were all on lockdown. I'm surprised there was ad campaigns even recorded. Nobody could leave, you know? And so I think that a lot of people, like, this kind of just went under the radar. If you weren't involved with it, I think a lot of the citizens of California, the entire state, kind of missed that this was even happening because of what was happening in our lives. You know, we were playing Monopoly at the kitchen table. I mean, like, what were we doing? So what's
the basics of Prop 19? The basics were
of Prop 19 are really interesting, and there's some really great points to it. And then there's some points that I think just people in the state of California, and if you live in other states, need to recognize the fact that they're kind of slipping in other legislation in these propositions, and to be really understanding if your state's trying to do something like this, what the implications are. So Prop 19 specifically went into effect April 1st of 2021 because it was voted in on November of 2020.
Right.
So post April 1st of 2021, what it did was it revamped Proposition 60 and 90, and there was another proposition in there, 110. So it was Prop 60, 90, and 110, and it gave it all new life. And the highlights of it are, if you are 55 years or older, I hate to call that senior because
and that's the thing, right? We have people who are living to 90. I have clients in their 80s and people in their mid 50s are like, wait, I'm a senior?
I'm a senior now. So yeah, I think that that's a little bizarre myself, but in this case, 55 years or older is considered senior. And so that's a pullover from Prop 60. The other two things that were added was that Proposition 110, which is for people that become severely disabled when they're living in their home. So God forbid, a car accident or something of that nature, getting diagnosed with some type of disease, and you become severely disabled and you're not able to live in your home anymore, because there's multiple stairs or it's not wheelchair accessible or whatever the case may be. So Prop 19 came in and said, senior citizen, on top of that, severely disabled. And then this was a huge update. It also brought in people that were victim of wildfire. So I've been around long enough to where I remember the Oakland Hills wildfires, right? But more, I'm tapping on that 55. So with that, obviously just a few months ago in Southern California, hundreds and hundreds of people lost their homes. We all remember Paradise and Coffee Park up in Sonoma County, things like that. So that wrapped in that group of our citizens as well. So now, if any of those three set of people represent you, wildfire victim, severely disabled, or 55 years or older, you can utilize Prop 19. Now, there are specifics to this. And again, we're talking about transferring property taxes from current residents to a replacement residence that fits your needs better. But we're only talking, and I do this with some dramatics, only talking about primary residence. Okay?
Right. Absolutely.
If you have a house in Tahoe and you want a new vacation house in South Shore, unfortunately, this is not going to work.
Not going to happen.
It's not going to work. We are
primary residents only.
Primary residence that you have to be owner and occupied in that residence. And so with the revamp of Prop 19, it is now everybody's invited to the party. There is no checking the website in January of every year to see who opted in and opt out. It's every single county throughout the state of California. Huge upgrade, right?
Yeah, like a great upgrade. Yeah.
It's a great upgrade. There's a couple things around it that you have to be aware of. If you use it, Prop 19 allows you to use it up to 3 times. And I thought about this, Herb, I actually thought about this when I read that. And I said, am I moving 3 times post 55 years or older?
Never know.
You never know, because, I think the example when you and I first met, the example I gave was, maybe you want to move closer to your grandkids and they're up in, the Sacramento area. So you're going to leave San Francisco, move up to Sacramento, and your grandkids are amazing and adorable. And then the teenagers, and you're like, come visit at Christmas. I'm moving to Reading.
Well, but there's the other side of it too. You might have parents. Right. You've got parents in their late 70s or 80s. So you move closer to the parents, right? And then we move closer to our grandkids. So I could see at least a double move there over time. Triple is when those kids have decided they're going to go to college and move away, and you're like, nope, I'm not going to take care of your kids. Bring them to visit. So I'm moving somewhere else.
I'm now moving to,
exactly. I'm now moving to
an Ocean View and Pebble Beach.
Exactly. One of the things I thought that you said earlier that I didn't know was because there are many people who develop as they get older some type of illness. My best friend I grew up with, he has Parkinson's.
Yes. Yeah.
And he that kind of a situation works for someone like that. Yes. And because there are so many age onset illnesses and that crop up.
Absolutely. And if you're, and if you're 55, you can use it anyways. But if you're hit with one of those debilitating, unfortunately, in my family, I've got multiple sclerosis and multiple relatives, multiple sclerosis. And then I also had a grandmother who had ALS. Gerd's disease, and she was in her 50s when she was diagnosed, but still, the onset of these diseases can really change the ability to utilize your home. If your bedroom's up a flight of stairs, what choices are we looking at? You can look at one of those chair ramps, but then all of the
who wants that, right? You want to be on one level.
who wants to not be able to enjoy their home,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So, and then, car accidents, instantaneous. You can wake up in the morning and be completely fine, and your entire physical well-being is changed by 2:00 in the afternoon, knock on wood. So, so just a lot of different things. So, if you're 55 years or older, you can utilize Prop 19 3 times. If you were a victim of a wildfire, you can use it for the rest of the time you're in the state of California. No matter how many times you move, there is no limitations if you're using Proposition 19 under that. So if you lost your house, unfortunately, in Coffee Park and you're in your 30s, you can have that property tax rate for the rest of time. So
because I had friends in the Coffee Park area who lost their home. So
I had a gentleman who worked on my sales team who lost his home. Just devastating. I can't imagine.
So basically how this works, and I'm going to sort of open it up here and see if I'm right. I sell my home. It's worth $1 million.
Yes.
And I can go buy $1 million or less. And my tax rate, I bought the home when it was $400,000. Yes. So my tax rate is based on the original $400,000 purchase. It's now valued at $1 million. Yes. I'm going to buy another property in one of my favorite areas in the state, which is in Central California, the San Luis Obispo, Arroyo Grande area down by the water.
Yes.
And I'm going to move down there, and I'm going to buy something for $998.
Yes.
And I get to take my original tax basis from $400,000 down there, right?
That is absolutely correct. And let's say that your dream home is on Pebble Beach and you're going to be on the 17th hole with an ocean view, and it's going to be
$1 million. That's for sure.
No, well, it can be more. It can be more. It can be more than $1 million. So in the scenario that you just gave, you originally purchased for $400,000. You sold for $1 million, and let's say the replacement property is $1.5 million.
Okay,
that's not going to be on the 17th hole in Pebble Beach, but let's say that your replacement property is $1.5 million. So that original $1 million, $400,000 tax base sold for $1 million. That's going to come over. Anything above the $1 million that you sold for, so anything above the sales price of the original property, will then be reassessed at today's rate and added onto the $400,000 tax bill.
So $500,000 of that purchase, because it's now $1.5 million purchase, that $500,000 is taxed at the current rate.
At current.
So my original tax basis, let's say my original tax bill is $4,000 a year. Just easy numbers here, and so $4,000. And so plus whatever the current tax rate is in that county on that house on the $500,000 will be added. And those together will be my new annual tax rate.
That is correct. But still an incredible savings.
Oh my gosh.
For anybody, because you're not, if you're buying for $1.5 million, those tax bills, $30,000 out the door, So at least the original amount is going to be what you're comfortable with and have been paying. So is there a calculator available? I'm sure at WFG Title, you guys probably have a tool on your website, right? We do. Yeah, you can come to any of our websites, and we have now you're going to forgive my techie term here. It's like a carousel of tools that run across the top of our website. I'm sure it has a fancier term than that, but there is a Prop 19 calculator.
Does it spill like a merry-go-round? It spins like a
merry-go-round that goes around all of our tools, and there is a Prop 19 calculator, so you can go in with your actual numbers and say, I bought for, $600,000. I'm selling for $1.2 million. Replacement properties, especially if you're a senior, a lot of times we're rightsizing those properties. So a lot of times it's just going to be your tax bill brought over, right? The goal is to, pocket some of that money. So if you sell for $1 million, you buy for $800,000 and you get $200 in your pocket to go on a trip.
Right. Right.
or do something else with. So in that case, the property tax bill will just move over. But if you did want to look at the calculator, WFG, Williston Financial Group, WFGtitle.com, and you'll see that Prop 19 calculator and be able to play with it. There is a couple other things with Prop 19 I want to make sure that everybody is aware of. Your replacement property, that transaction needs to take place within 2 years. It doesn't matter which way you go, meaning I can be in my current residence, find that dream house, my replacement property, purchase it, and make it my primary residence within 2 years, or vice versa. I could sell my property, go up, stay with my parents, stay with my children, stay with, my grandchildren.
Oh, no, I'm moving to Portugal for a year. What are you talking about?
Yeah. As long as you find the replacement property and close escrow, making it your primary residence within 2 years, you should be able to qualify for this. But you can't go to Portugal for 5 years and come back and ask for that property tax base back.
So what happens if someone didn't know about Prop 19?
Well, that's funny because
they wind up selling, and then about 14 months later, they've already bought the home, they've moved in, and they're having dinner with you.
It's amazing how many real estate and title and escrow and tax questions actually are talked about at my dinner table. It's all the time.
Right.
So we're a very boring couple. Well,
they find out at a dinner or a cocktail event, and they say, we bought this house and we're not certain. Why do we have such a high tax rate, et cetera, et cetera? And someone says to them, well, wait, didn't you transfer your house under
your property tax? Yeah.
What do they do?
So I would immediately head to the assessor's office in the county of the replacement property and say, I sold my primary residence of 25 years 15 months ago. I have now purchased and moved into my replacement property in North Beach, San Francisco, California, and I want that tax base. And then the assessor's office, and this is how you do it regardless. If you knew about it or didn't know about it, you go to the assessor's office in the county of the replacement property, because they're the ones that are porting over that tax base. Right. And I would talk to or consult that professional in the county that you moved into and have the assessor's office help you take care of those property taxes. So
will you get a retroactive change? Will they give you a credit? Will you get a check? Or is it it's a 14 months later, you already paid your taxes once? Money's gone.
Yeah, that money's gone. It was a bad year for property tax. I would really just talk about and consult with the assessor's office. I would hope that if you were reassessed at a lower rate, you would get a credit. But there's humans in every single one of our counties, and those humans have their own ideas about this law. So I would definitely go in and talk to that assessor's and consult the assessor's office and see what they say about it. But yes, I would definitely say, fingers crossed, that they say, oh, you shouldn't have paid $16,000. You should have paid $2,500.
Right.
Let me give you.
I'm going to get right on that.
Good things happen. Rainbows happen, right? So
but they have to do that within 2 years.
Yes.
Right?
But after the 2-year mark, like in your example, if you could go to Portugal for 5 years and come back, they're not going to let you transfer those property taxes.
Right.
But Proposition 19 did something else. So this is great, right? Yeah. It did something else. And that's what we're finding today in 2025. People are feeling this proposition and feeling the effects of this proposition because, again, it passed in 2020, went in April 1st. Now enough time's passed to where people that didn't know about the proposition are feeling some of the implications of it. And the last part about this, and this is also, if your state's thinking about doing anything like this, to pay attention to, Proposition 19 eliminated the ability for keeping rental property taxes at the rate that your parent or grandparent was paying. So for example, Herb, let's just say for the case of this, is my father. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Herb, I just made you older than me, which I don't actually think is the case, but I'm going to make you older than me. So if Herb invested all of his wealth in real estate, and I being his heir, his daughter, he left his estates to me, and then passes away, because this is my inheritance. Okay. Right. If I moved into one of those rental properties, I can keep the tax base that you were paying as my father and continue on if I make it my primary residence. However, if I inherited 5 properties or 8 properties or 12 properties, you can only make one your primary resident.
Right.
Everything else will be reassessed at today's market rate, which could, depending on your financial stability, could force you to sell your inheritance, because property taxes that, on a house that you used for a rental for the last 25 years, and you're still paying a relatively low property tax bill, that could heavily impact. So if you're investing in the state of California into properties, and that is your children's inheritance, you may want to, talk to a financial consultant about the implications of Prop 19. You may want to at least prepare the child and let them know that when you pass away, they do need to make it their primary residence. And there's a caveat to that as well.
There's one more thing.
Yeah, but wait, there's more. And that property tax bill will only stay the same up to $1 million. So if I live in one of those gorgeous Victorians, I think it's Green Street in San Francisco, that's worth
anywhere in the city.
Anywhere in the city, right? And it's worth $3 million, $3 and $5 million, or whatever it is. The property tax bill can transfer from parent to child up to $1 million. And then whatever's over that million is going to be reassessed at today's market rate. So even making it my primary residence, if it's above $1 million, I'm looking at could potentially very large increase to those property taxes.
Mm-hmm. So is that primarily in a parent-child transfer? Was this kind of one of the things that happened in Prop 19? Because a lot of times a parent may transfer one property to a child and an adult child, and that tax rate just transferred with it and stayed with the property.
Correct.
Yes. And it was regardless of the value.
Yes.
Did that change all of that and upend all of that?
It upended all of it. So previously, parents could transfer secondary properties, such as vacation homes, right. Whatever they wanted to their children without triggering a reassessment. Grandparent to grandchild, parent to child. Like, we were doing that in the title companies all the time, and never in my family. I always like to. Where's the inheritance for this one? But
exactly.
But yeah, it's not happening. So, but that really triggered, and we didn't feel the effects until now. 21 has happened, or 2021 has happened, 2022 has happened, 23, 25, right? And now people are starting to pass away, unbeknownst to them that this Prop 19 had this piece of legislature built into it. The child is inheriting the properties and now realizing, or worse, not realizing, and starting to get property tax bills in the mail.
Right. The bill comes in the mail and they're just shocked.
Because now their property bill is $15,000 when, parents were paying $1,200 to $1,500 in installment. And now their financial planning has drastically changed because, the same tenants have been in that rental property for the last 15 years. They had no, let them stay, collect the rent. Everything's great.
Sure.
Now that rent doesn't cover even the property taxes, never mind the maintenance or, anything else that got the insurance. That could be a whole nother podcast, insurance in California.
That's definitely another podcast. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
I remember talking to my insurance person a couple months ago and said, why did my insurance go up? As we get older, it's supposed to go down.
Yeah.
And she said, well, do you want the truth or the politically correct answer?
Which are vastly different.
Exactly. I said the truth. She said, well, the insurance commissioner gave us permission to change and increase the rates.
Yep.
So we did.
So imagine that, Herb.
Exactly.
So they did.
So getting back to this,
yeah,
there's so many things, and one of the things we have to say to people is talk to your CPA, talk to your trust attorney, really have that conversation, because it's really important as parents age how to transfer and grow legacy assets, right?
Yes.
Whether it is adding a child to title prior to a parent passing away. I mean, all of that. There are lots of options that people really need to look into. As many communities, we see legacy transition. It doesn't happen sometimes for various reasons in families and family situations. So I'm a big proponent of trying to get and make sure that people are growing legacy and family assets.
Exactly. And I think historically, especially in California, real estate was the number one way to do that. That was how you created generational wealth.
Right.
You got your pennies together, watched the interest rates, went in, and then that was how you were going to build up generation after generation.
Yeah.
And with this proposition, with this last piece of it, it really just deleted generational wealth in this format, in that format. Yeah. And so it's something about that, I've had real estate agents call me, because in my title company position over the last year, my client just got, how is this possible? I'll tell you how it's possible. So that's really heavily affecting estate planning for people in the state of California.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, here on the Sandbox, we talk about a lot of stuff, and this is really interesting. And I love that you've gotten into the weeds on this with us. And I might have to have you back.
Proposition. Yeah, I love it. It's so yin and yang. I mean, it's got so many great nuggets to it. It really allows. I hate the word downside. Downsizing, Herb, is so gross to it. It's like nails on a chalkboard. Yeah. Right-sizing your home when you are in your final years, and fingers crossed, the kids have launched. They're out of the house. They're doing it on their own.
It sounds like a fantasy you're having.
It is. It's a slight fantasy. Yes. Hope. I have hope, Herb. So, they're out of the house, and you don't need all those bedrooms. You don't need all of that. I look, my grandparents lived in a home in Daly City, right south of San Francisco. And I used to count, there was 17 stairs from the sidewalk to their front door, just the way that those houses were built. And later on in life, they were really housebound. They couldn't leave because of their physical restraints. And, I just wish that I knew about proposition, whether it be 60, 90, and 110, the original ones, or the updated one. I wish I was better versed than them. We could have probably got them in a better situation and right-sized that house. And so I hope that for the reason why the proposition was written, people utilize it, get into their right house, don't get into a financial situation without, not being able to pay your property taxes. But also know the other side of it as well. Don't plan on generational wealth through real estate with this property in place.
Well, I'm going to have your information put at the end of the website. The producer is going to add that in, because I want to make sure that they call you and your staff, your crew, and to make sure that they're learning about this. This is a super interesting topic. And I had met with a client a while back, and they're similar, live in Daly City, 4-bedroom, 3-bath. And she's 61. And she said, my daughter wants me to move out. But I don't know what to do, because how am I going to manage the new expenses, the new tax rate, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I mentioned to her Prop 19 and explained it to her. And when she left, she said, I'm going to go home and call my daughter, because I can move now. right?
It's possible. It is possible to move and to enjoy, what you're doing. Who in the world wants to run Target bags up full flights of stairs? Exactly. I don't want to do it at my age now. Who wants to do it when you're 65 and 70 years old?
Exactly.
Nobody wants to bring their groceries upstairs.
So here on the Sandbox, I like to ask that unique question that's totally out of the blue.
Oh, okay. Now I'm scared. Okay.
So now you're scared.
Yeah.
All right. So I like to ask people about cartoons. It's one of my things. So if you had to pick a cartoon character that emulates who you are, who's the cartoon character in your vast past of watching cartoons or kids watching cartoons around you? Who's the cartoon character that best represents Katie?
She-Ra, the Princess of Power.
Really?
Yes.
You're so emphatic about that. Tell me why.
I mean, come on. She had a sword. She had like the cute ensemble. She had great hair. She also, she was a princess that kicked some butt. Like She-Ra, the Princess of Power, hands down.
Awesome.
I also just totally told all of your listeners my age. So and for those younger generations, you don't even know who that is.
Exactly.
You missed some great cartoons.
Oh my gosh. Well, folks, that's a wrap. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more raw, real financial talk in the Sandbox. I'm so grateful for you coming on and the show today and talking about Prop 19. We're going to get some slides together, web links, and so on and so forth, and your contact info. And
visit my website for that calculator if you're interested.
Exactly. Hey, thanks a lot. It's great to see you. Thanks for coming on the show.